Stand by.
Good afternoon and welcome to Africa Update on Channel Africa, the African Perspective, where we meet to look at the latest in news, current affairs and sports. I am Kantla Mahlangu, broadcasting live from the Century City Conference Center in Cape Town, South Africa. In studio in Auckland Park, Johannesburg is Jwalani Tulongwebe, Tabiso Lehogo and Fikile Lingwati. But first, the news with Jwalani Tulongwebe and sports headlines with Fikile Lingwati.
SABC News, the African Perspective.
Thank you, Ntlantla. Good day. Doctors Without Borders, or MSF, has called for urgent aid to support Sudanese refugees fleeing to Chad. The humanitarian situation at the border between Chad and Sudan has again reached a tipping point. An estimated 40,000 Sudanese refugees have arrived in the Chadian town of Tine since April. Chad is already hosting over 1 million refugees, including more than 800,000 Sudanese who have arrived since the conflict began over 2 years ago. MSF's Pietro Maria Kutas explains.
Majority of the people that we saw crossing they arrived in extremely bad situation, and the situation in Chad at the moment is far from being perfect, with an hosting system that is basically unexisting. Take as a starting date the beginning of the war in Sudan 2 years ago. We're talking about 800,000 Sudanese who fled the country. If we go a bit less further in time, then we can estimate around 70,000 new refugees that reached Chad, of which around 40,000 arrived in Wadi Fira. So if we talk about the transit camp where MSF is currently operating, nowadays we have around 18,000 people being there.
The United Nations General Assembly has elected Bahrain, Colombia, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Latvia and Liberia to the 15-member UN Security Council for two-year terms starting in January next year. The Security Council is the only UN body that can make legally binding decisions, such as imposing sanctions and authorizing use of force. It has 5 permanent veto-wielding members, which are Britain, China, France, Russia and the United States. The remaining 10 members are elected, with 5 new members joining every year. The General Assembly on Monday also elected former German Foreign Minister Alena Baerbock as president of the 193-member body for its 80th session, which begins in September. Political analyst in South Africa, Thobani Zikalala, believes the deployment of Floyd Shivambu to Parliament will help strengthen the Umkhonto weSizwe Party's caucus in the National Assembly. Shivambu has been removed as the party secretary general to take up new responsibilities at Parliament in Cape Town. He defected from the Economic Freedom Fighters Party to join the MK Party in August last year. Last week, Colleen Makubele succeeded Mzwanele Manyi, who was removed as the chief whip of the MK Party in Parliament. Zikalala says Shivambu's political wisdom will assist in reorganizing the MK Party's parliamentary caucus in order to maximize its functioning.
Even though he has been doing a very good job in trying to stabilize the MK Party and transform it to a real organization, but I think also in Parliament he can help them in terms of strengthening that parliamentary caucus, because also there's been questions about the performance of that parliamentary caucus in Parliament of the MK Party. And I think adding someone like Floyd Shivambu adds a voice that can be able to strengthen and, of course, add with his intellectual prowess, because it seems also that parliamentary caucus will be reorganized in such a way that the best talents there can be seen and they can be able to do their work properly.
The Powers and Privileges Committee in South Africa will today consider a referral made by the Speaker of the National Assembly Togo Didiza on an allegation of misconduct against a member of parliament. The identity of the member has not been divulged yet. The committee is responsible for investigating allegations of contempt or misconduct by members of parliament. This includes conducting hearings during its investigations and make recommendations for penalties for breaches of parliamentary rules and privileges. And finally, the US and Israeli-backed emergency relief in Gaza is being closed today after repeated deadly violence linked to the operation. The group behind the much-criticized food distribution program, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, said the operation was being suspended to allow for organizational and efficiency improvements. Since Sunday, dozens of Palestinians have been killed as they try to collect food. The spokesperson for the UN Human Rights Office, Jeremy Lawrence, called the attacks unconscionable.
There must be a prompt and impartial investigation into each of these attacks and those responsible held to account. Attacks directed against civilians constitute a grave breach of international law and a war crime.
For any news stories you would like to share with us, please do send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa News, I'm Jolani Tulo Webe.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And in our sports headlines this hour, it is the Zambian striker who says they have a wake-up call after their defeat to Banyana Banyana ahead of the WAFCON. And Virat Kohli has given his side, the Bengaluru side, the first IPL trophy in 17 years. I'll be back with these and other stories at the bottom of the hour.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
Thank you, Figile. Remember, we are live to you from Century City Conference Center in Cape Town, South Africa, at the Africa Tech Week Conference. A report by Greenpeace Africa and the Center for Research on Energy and Clean Air shows that air pollution has become a devastating and avoidable public health crisis in South Africa. It claims that 42,000 South Africans, including 1,300 children under the age of 5, lost their lives due to exposure to fine particle pollution in 2023 alone. Now, to talk more about this, we are joined on the line by climate and energy campaigner at Greenpeace Africa, Cynthia Moya. Cynthia Moya, thank you so much for taking your time and joining us on Africa Update.
So the line drops.
We seem to have lost Cynthia. We are trying to get hold of her. Remember, we are coming to you live from Cape Town, where the Africa Tech Week conference is currently underway. We are on the DSTV audio bouquet, channel 802, on OpenView on channel 628, and you can live stream us on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app available on the Google and Apple Play stores. We seem to have Cynthia on the line to talk more to us about a report by Greenpeace Africa and the Center for Research on Energy and Clean Air, which shows that air pollution has become a devastating and avoidable public health crisis in South Africa. Cynthia, thank you so much for taking your time and joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you so much for having me and for having us and allowing us, to shed more light on the air pollution report.
Thank you. Now, do these numbers reflect a worsening situation, or is it just the impact on what has been happening over many years, and are we beginning to hear about it now?
The reported 42,000 deaths in our report are due to PM 2.5 pollution in 2023. And this is also including 1,300 deaths of children under the ages of 5. So this reflects both, a worsening situation, and also that cumulative impact of the long-standing issues that we have in South Africa. So yes, the Greenpeace Africa and CREA report is highlighting that the PM 2.5 levels have remained alarmingly high, for years.
And is South Africa sticking to its national determined contributions in line with our decarbonization plan?
I was really hoping you were going to ask this question because Honestly, our NDCs as South Africa emphasize decarbonization and also a just energy transition. But our reliance on coal-fired power plants undermines these commitments. So we have violations, on national ambient air quality standards, and also we have these delays that are there in retiring the coal plants. As detailed in the report, we highlight that there is this disconnect between policy goals and also the implementation.
And is there anything in your knowledge being done to mitigate against by the government? It's not the first we hear about how bad the air quality in these provinces.
Yes, definitely. There is efforts such as the establishment of the air quality priority areas in the High Veld and also in the Vaal Triangle, in the Waterberg regions that are aimed to, address air pollution. But what we've found, or what is being revealed in our report, is that these measures have been largely ineffective. Compliance enforcement remains very weak, and also exemptions for major polluters like Eskom are really exacerbating the problem. It's one of the things that we also brought out when we were called by the Portfolio Committee last year, when we released another report which was unmasking the major air polluters in Africa. So we were really, pointing it out that there needs to be compliance enforcement.
Now, Gauteng and Mpumalanga are the hardest hit according to your report. Can you just talk to us about how air pollution affects the health of those exposed?
Okay. So Gauteng and also Mpumalanga, they experience some of the highest PM2.5 levels in the country, far exceeding the WHO World Health Organization guidelines. So these health impacts that we're talking about include respiratory illnesses. We are also talking of, the cardiovascular diseases and also adverse birth outcomes. Just in Gauteng alone, 16,000 deaths in 2023 were attributed to PM2.5 exposure, with similar high rates of morbidity in Mpumalanga.
We'll leave it there. Cynthia, I really do appreciate you taking your time and talking to us on Africa Update.
Thank you so much for having us.
That was a climate and energy campaigner at Greenpeace Africa, Cynthia Moyo, talking to us there about their report that they recently released, which shows that air pollution has become a devastating and avoidable public health crisis in South Africa.
We are on Open Views on
Stand by.
Channel 628.
South Africa's Minister of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, Sindisiwe Chikunga, has called on the nation to remember that Youth Month is not just a symbolic commemoration, while Youth Day is not merely a public holiday. Minister Chikunga made these remarks at the 2025 Youth Month launch at the Hector Peterson Memorial in Soweto, where she paid tribute to the courageous youth of 1976 whose resistance to the apartheid and sacrifice helped shape the country's democratic future. Channel Africa's reporter Michael Mbewe attended the launch and brought us the story.
Observed under the theme Skills for the Changing World, Empowering Youth for Meaningful Economic Participation, South Africa's Minister of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, Sindisiwe Chikunga, officially launched Youth Month 2025 in Soweto on Monday, where she delivered a heartfelt and powerful tribute to the young people of 1976, reminding South Africans that Youth Month is far more than just a calendar event, and Youth Day is not just another holiday.
I find it necessary and indeed benefiting to remind both our young people and society at large that Youth Month is no ordinary month and Youth Day is not a mere holiday. This is a month for us to not only commemorate but also to draw courage from generations of Oliver Tambo's young lions whose selfless sacrifice brought about this freedom, the freedom for which many paid with their own lives. To paraphrase President Nelson Mandela, here at home, when injustice had an upper hand, it was the youth who jolted our nation from its slumber and rejected inferior education in a manner that changed the course of our history and accelerated the downfall of apartheid and colonialism.
She stressed the importance of honoring those who fought for equal education, economic opportunity, and freedom in 1976, paying heavily, and their names should therefore be written with indelible ink.
In their pursuit for the doors of learning and culture to be open for all, and in their heroic rejection of roots-bound education, Hector Peterson, Hastings Lovu, Tsietsi Mashinini paid the ultimate price. While much of the attention is focused on Soweto, I need you to know that throughout that fateful month, young people were killed all over the country. John Davidson from Mannenberg was shot in the head from behind. He was 16 years old. Dennis Lanza, Abel Twabe were all shot and killed in the Western Cape. Enoch Foley from Soweto was shot above his heart. Many others disappeared without a trace. And these heroes and heroines should be honored, remembered, and not written out of history.
The minister added that the youth of 1976 did not limit their struggle on education only.
That generation did not only protest against the mandatory use of Afrikaans as a medium of instruction in black schools, they also demanded that they be taught in English or in their native languages instead. They demanded economic equality and opportunity and fought for the freedom of movement. They demanded an end to the daily humiliation and dehumanization treatment that characterized life under apartheid.
Gauteng Region MEC for Social Development, Faith Mazibuko, raised concerns over young people's adopted behaviors of alcoholism, which then transforms into substance abuse.
We also do have a challenge of substance abuse, which is now killing our young people. And I believe as part of this Youth Month, one of the priorities is to ensure that we fight this sickness that is amongst young people, substance abuse. It starts with alcohol. And then you see that alcohol is not doing anything, you now migrate to stronger things. That is why we have this challenge of substance abuse.
MEC Mazibuko lambasted the youth for allowing undocumented migrants penetrate spaza shops' opportunities, while blaming foreign spaza shop owners of feeding their children with contaminated consumables.
The minister was registering spaza shops. How many of you took advantage of that? Instead, you continue allowing others who came in containers, undocumented, to come into our country and run these spaza shops. And we're puzzled why the children are eating poisons.
Channel Africa spoke to Lerato Masondo, a young woman from Soweto, on the origin of Youth Month.
This was in 1976, during the apartheid time, when the students was striving for equality between the blacks and whites. So we had the challenges to say most students, the blacks, were not privileged enough, were not given the privilege to actually have access to more opportunities. Even the transportation to those opportunities was difficult because the whites were more privileged to get into that. So June 16, we're celebrating them as to thanking them for the democracy that they gave us to have access to these opportunities.
Stand by, guys. I'm coming to you after Lina.
Race and religion, but then we believe in a community that is united and building.
Michael Mbewe, Channel Africa News, Johannesburg.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
We are broadcasting live from Century City Conference Center in Cape Town, South Africa, where the Africa Tech Week two-day summit is currently underway. Now, with the digital threats becoming more sophisticated, the online entertainment industry offers valuable insights into how businesses can prepare for and respond to cyber risks. A session unpacking the current cybersecurity landscape, looking at the most pressing issues, has just concluded at the conference. Now, to discuss this further, we have with us Amten Baitakon, who was one of the speakers. He's from SoftSwift. Amten, thank you so much for taking your time and joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Maybe first, just give us your impression of what you make of this conference.
Well, for me, it's quite interesting and insightful to learn about growing technology sector in South Africa. I know that as I represent an online entertainment sector, I know it's growing in South Africa, but it was also very educative for me to learn about increasing level of digitalization, connectivity, and technology penetration in South Africa.
Now, just tell us more about the session that you've just attended. What were some of the key takeaways?
Well, I spoke about the fact that to elaborate further from the growing online entertainment sector, cybercrime is following the money. Where there are more users, more market value, there are more criminals after the financial gains. So the talk was focusing about how we as an industry see current threats. More, I provided an overview of the most common, most and most dangerous threats and techniques that organized cybercrime uses, and highlighted few approaches, measures that we as companies who work in this industry may do to protect our users, our customers.
And what would you say are the most prominent and emerging cybersecurity threats facing the online entertainment industry in 2025?
There are two facets of that. One side is cyber criminal actors attacking companies themselves to massively leak databases, to compromise customers' personal data massively, and also they do attack regular users, because in online entertainment services the end user accounts are quite valuable for cyber criminals, so they also attacking regular users of the platforms and services.
And why is the entertainment sector such a prime target for cyber criminals? What makes its threat landscape unique?
I won't say it is entirely unique, because we have cryptocurrency sector, payments sector, but online entertainment is probably it is more widespread. We have a lot of active users, and the data and the accounts of users are valuable for cyber criminals. There is simply money to steal.
Maybe also share with us, some examples of recent significant breaches in the entertainment space, and what lessons were learned from the responses.
Well, I probably won't be providing an examples right now, because if you follow the news, cybersecurity news, there are a lot of breaches in online entertainment sector, and not only in online entertainment, but other types of online businesses. Even huge corporations get hacked by cyber criminals, and one of the main lessons to take from these stories is that sometimes even huge corporations getting hacked by very simple techniques, and then they also do some mistakes that probably nobody expecting them to do. So I also during the talk I also highlighted that having a comprehensive security program is a paramount for any online business. It should not be an afterthought. So we always need to make basics right, and only then switch to some advanced technologies and buzzwords in security area.
Let's talk artificial intelligence. How are entertainment companies using AI and automation to predict, detect, as well as prevent cyber threats more effectively?
Well, we have massive data sets. We build models of normal user behavior, and of course we use artificial intelligence to detect anomalies in activities and to find some abnormal, criminal, illegitimate activity, and also uncover potentially hacked users. Customers who became victims of cybercrime.
We are still coming to you live from the Africa Tech Week in Cape Town. Now, Africa Tech Week is a 2-day summit that was created to focus on educating South Africa and other African countries on the challenges and opportunities to be gained by drafting appropriate plans and policies for the fourth industrial revolution. And with me, I have Amten Beitukov. He is the Deputy Chief Security Officer at Soft Swiss, and he's just come out of a session that was talking about digital threats becoming more sophisticated in the online entertainment industry. Now, let's talk about how, rather what best practices from online entertainment industry can be applied across other high-risk sectors like fintech, e-commerce, or even healthcare.
To efficiently protect our customers and users, I think it's quite important to focus on end user account security. So we as companies that provide online services should provide strong authentication with using different factors like biometry, passwordless access to our services. We need to actively monitor activity of users for signs of fraud and potentially hacked accounts. We need to stay ahead of the cyber criminals by searching, by uncovering vulnerabilities in our software and systems and fixing them before the real attackers would do it. And yes, of course, we need to focus on building a comprehensive security program that will actually protect the company and the users.
And looking ahead, what strategic investment or mindset shifts are necessary to future-proof cybersecurity in a constantly evolving digital environment?
I think we should invest more resources like time and money into education, into educating people, our customers, our users about secure practices to stay safe online. And also we need to raise the overall awareness of security issues in younger companies and smaller companies who sometimes take cybersecurity as an afterthought, and sometimes it leads to very nasty incidents. So I think we need to focus on education first about the security.
Tem, we'll leave it there. I really appreciate you taking your time and joining us on Channel Africa.
Yeah, thank you.
Now that was the Deputy CSO at Soft Swift, Tem Beitukov. He was talking to us right here at the Africa Tech Week Summit in Cape Town, South Africa. But it's time now for the news headlines with Jwalane Tulomwebe.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Nhlanhla. Good afternoon. Making headlines, Doctors Without Borders has called for urgent aid to support Sudanese refugees fleeing to Chad. The humanitarian situation at the border between Chad and Sudan has again reached a tipping point. The United Nations General Assembly has elected Bahrain, Colombia, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Latvia and Liberia to the 15-member UN Security Council for 2-year terms starting in January next year. And finally, the US and Israeli-backed emergency relief in Gaza has been closed today after repeated deadly violence linked to the operation, the group behind the much-criticized food distribution program. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation said the operation was being suspended to allow for organizational and efficiency improvements. I will have details on these and other stories at 1 o'clock.
Stand by, guys.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Jalani, and we now hand over to the sports department with Fikile Lingwati, who has the latest sports news.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you and good afternoon, Nhlanhla. We begin with football news this hour. Zambia striker Rachel Kundanaji says their defeat to Banyana Banyana should serve as a wake-up call ahead of the Women's Africa Cup of Nations, WAFCON. Banyana beat the Copper Queens 2-0 with goals from Bongega Gamete and Jermaine Seposinwe to be crowned the Three Nations champions at Lucas Muripe Stadium yesterday. Kunda Nanji believes they remain on track in their preparations for the continental showpiece, but this defeat will help them address some of their shortcomings heading to Morocco.
I think they are going well, and having these two friendly matches, this is the eye-opener to see where we are lacking and where we should work on toward to the AFCON. So I feel like this is the good motivation for the players, and knowing that losing today after doing our level best, this should keep us, should push us to work extra hard and work on our mistakes.
The Bay FC striker believes they could have won the game had they converted their chances.
They gave us a good game. It was a good game, and we were winning despite missing chances. I think we need to utilize our chances so that, because if we scored in the first half, I think we could have been talking about the other way, not the way it went.
Now, cricket news. Virat Kohli said it was as much for the fans after he finally won the IPL at his 18th attempt, with Bengaluru's ecstatic supporters preparing to welcome home their hero at the victory parade. Royal challengers Bengaluru beat Punjab Kings by 6 runs in a roller coaster IPL final on Tuesday in Ahmedabad of more than 91,000 fans who erupted in joy when Kohli lifted the trophy at the world's biggest cricket stadium. A 36-year-old Kohli, the only man to have played all 18 years for the same IPL team since its inaugural season in 2008, fittingly top-scored with 43 to anchor Bengaluru to victory. Kohli, who captained Bengaluru in 143 matches between 2011 and 2023, had been on the losing side in 3 previous IPL finals. And later today, he will celebrate with his teammates on an open-top bus tour in southern city of Bengaluru. Many will be wearing Kohli's number 18th shirt as they celebrate their side's first IPL final win.
This win is as much for the fans as it is for the team. It's been 18 long years. I've given this team my youth, my prime, and my experience. And I've tried to win this every season that I come, and I give it everything I have. And to finally have this moment come, it's an unbelievable feeling. I never thought this day would come. I was overcome with emotions as soon as the last ball was bowled, and this means so much to me. I've just, as I said, given each and every ounce of my energy to this team.
And finally, tennis news. Australian Nick Kyrgios says he will miss this year's Wimbledon after suffering a small setback on his latest return from injury. Kyrgios, who was beaten in the 2022 final at the All England Club by Novak Djokovic, has played very little tennis over the past 2 years because of a troublesome wrist that required surgery. In March at the Miami Open, a 30-year-old won his first singles match since 2022, but later pulled out of the French Open with a knee injury, where he had been scheduled to play men's doubles. Wimbledon underway on the 30th of June. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Figile Lungwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Vicky.
Hi, I'm Tami Ngubeni.
Sorry. Auntie, we'll come to you after promo. Ne? Auntie?
Yebo.
Okay, I will come to you after promo, then you will intro sports.
Okay.
Much awaited inaugural G20 summit in South Africa, November 2025.
Tune in every Thursday at 16:20 Central African Time as we explore how this first G20 in Africa impacts the continent, from trade and innovation to climate and development.
It's a powerful crossover between Channel Africa and SAFM
as we bring you the G20 through an African lens.
The G20 in Africa
Global Summit.
Stand by.
For the latest business news, here's Tabiso Lehoko.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thanks, Ntanta, and good afternoon. Senegalese Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko says his country plans to boost tax compliance to increase revenue and reduce reliance on financing from external sources like the International Monetary Fund. Senegal is engaging with the IMF to craft a resolution following a case of misreporting of debt and deficit levels, which led to the suspension of its $1.8 billion financing program with the fund. Data from Egypt's statistics agency shows that annual urban consumer price inflation jumped to 16.8% in May from 13.9% in April. The rise in headline inflation surpassed the median forecast of a rise of 14.9%, driven mainly by an unfavorable base effect. Annual inflation has plunged from a record high of 38% in September 2023, helped by an $8 billion financial support package signed with the IMF in March 2024. The start of the joint meeting of the South African Parliament's Standing Committee on Finance and Select Committee on Finance has been delayed for more than an hour in an effort to find a better equipped venue. The meeting is set to adopt the report of the fiscal framework and revenue proposals for 2025-2026. It includes the general fuel levy increase, which the EFF has challenged in court and lost. However, majority of members raised the strong objection of the meeting taking place in a venue that couldn't seat all interested parties, including the media, as well as the fact that it didn't have live streaming or recording facilities. Here is Dr. Mark Burke from the DA and Umpila Maadwe from the EFF.
I want to raise our strong objection to the selection of venue again, which is not big enough to house the members here, and the clear media interest in the most important meeting happening in Parliament today.
There's a tendency of Parliament not recording the meetings of the Standing Committee of Finance. It's been a couple of times, even the last one where we deliberated on the report.
Experts believe the high rate of jobless women in South Africa will remain unchanged if policies favouring women are not stringent enough. This is the response to the first quarter labour force survey that reveals that expanded unemployment rate for women remains at 47%, while only 39% for men are jobless. Economist Dr. Nthabise Moleko says employment opportunities need to be inclusive and able to cater to women's social challenges. She says more job opportunities should be made accessible to women in rural areas and townships.
The issue here is that
if you don't have a widening labor employment intensity ratio, which means that the number of people entering the labor market being hired and being able to be employed persons, irrespective of the sector, has to increase. And this is done through changing your economic policies, your industrial policies, your support for financial sector, inclusion, access to finance, that affects the outcome.
U.S. job openings increased in April, but layoffs posted the biggest rise in 9 months, suggesting that labor market conditions were softening as tariff uncertainty dims the economic outlook. The job openings and labor turnover survey from the Labor Department also shows the number of people quitting their jobs for greener pastures declined by the most since November. This is consistent with surveys showing consumers are becoming less confident about the jobs market. Economists say the on-gain, off-gain, and off-again manner in which President Donald Trump's import duties are being implemented has left businesses in limbo and struggling to plan ahead. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,000 naira 580, Botswana 13.27, Kenya 128 shilling 4, and Zambia 26 kwacha 74. The BRICS countries in Brazil, the dollar will cost you 5 ruble 66, Russia 78 rubles 88, India 85 rupees 58, China 71.19, and in South Africa the dollar will cost you 17 rand 86. $1 is trading at 73 pence to the British pound and 87 to the euro. Gold $3,361, platinum $1,088 per ounce. Brent crude oil is at $65.48 a barrel. For any business stories you would like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459 for Channel Africa Business in Johannesburg. I'm Tabisolo Hoko.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa Update on Standby Africa.
Thank you, Tabiso. We are broadcasting live from the Century City Conference Center in Cape Town for the Africa Tech Week 2-day Tech Summit exhibition and awards ceremony. We are on the DSTV audio bouquet, channel 802 on OpenView, on channel 628, and you can live stream us on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app available on the Google and Apple Play stores. You can join in the conversation by finding us on X at Channel Africa, numerical 1, Facebook at Channel Africa, Instagram at Channel Africa 1. You can also subscribe on YouTube at Channel Africa 1. Remember to use the hashtag Africa Update. You can also send us your comments and voice notes to +2763 406 912. In your comments, please tell us which country you are in. You can also send us your stories to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or alternatively, you can call us on +2711 714 4459. Former DRC President
Get Channel Africa on DSTV audio bouquet.
Sorry.
Former DRC President Joseph Kabila met with the women's and youth associations to discuss efforts to restore peace across the country. During the meeting, Kabila expressed his commitment to re-establishing stability for the Congolese people and bringing an end to ongoing conflicts, particularly in the eastern regions of the Democratic Republic of Congo. The associations pledged their support and participation in the pursuit of lasting peace. Channel Africa's Jimmy Shukrani Bakomera reports from Goma.
While in Goma, North Kivu province,
Former President Joseph Kabila Kabange met with the women leaders of Goma to discuss with them about the political situation in the whole country, DRC. During their discussions, they shared with him the primary goal, the restoration of peace in the North Kivu province, part of which has been occupied by the M23 rebels for approximately 6 months. These women also expressed their desire to be fully involved in all efforts and initiatives aimed at restoring peace in the region, stressing the urgency of putting an end to this conflict, which is paralyzing the lives of our family. The representative of women mediators and ambassador for peace in the Ruchuru territory, Liberata Rubumba Buratwa, member of the delegation which met Joseph Kabila, asked the former president to use his experience in order to restore everlasting peace in the eastern of the Democratic Republic of Congo. As part of his consultation, Joseph Kabila Kabange received the Goma Youth Association. There was a single topic on the agenda: talk about peace. President Kabila retired that Congolese youth have a decisive role to play in preventing the fragmentation of the country and to struggle against insecurity and bad politics, which has been reconstructed by the government of Kinshasa. First, with multiple pressures, he invited them to make a courageous and responsible choice for the sake, history, and posterity. Addressing the youth, he asked them to reject exploitation and to be the builders of a real peace based on the unity, truth, and solidarity. At the end of the discussion, the young people expressed their desire to be more involved in the process of finding solution, affirming their willingness to actively contribute to the reconstruction of the country. The president welcomed his awareness and reaffirmed his willingness to support a youth who is aware, engaged, and agent of changement. Until now, the Tshisekedi regime continues to blame former President Joseph Kabila for being a great founder of the AFC M23 rebels, which, according to Kinshasa, causes insecurity in the eastern part of the country, calling him a collaborator and the leader of this political and military movement. For his part, former President Joseph Kabila also judged the Kinshasa government for sowing terror among civilians and prioritizing injustice and the dictatorship in the DRC. Reporting from Goma, Jimmy Shukran Bakomera, Channel Africa News.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
We are live from Century City Conference Center in Cape Town, South Africa. We are on the DSTV audio bouquet channel 802 and in open view on channel 628. Now, at this year's Africa Tech Week, GOSO has unveiled an AI device that's changing the game in the sector called the brain. It ensures your battery is always charged to alert you to any changes that could affect you. For more on this, we are now joined live here at Century City Conference Center by the CEO at GOSO, Henry Middleton. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Let's first talk about, how artificial intelligence is changing the energy sector.
Oh, absolutely. I think AI is changing many sectors, but energy is no different. And I think solar is one of the fastest growing energy technologies in the world. And what's important to understand about solar is often when solar energy is available, it's not necessarily when it needs to be consumed. For instance, when people are home in the evening, they're not necessarily going to have solar energy available directly. And that's why it's important that we've got batteries and we've got storage so that people can use the solar when they need it, not necessarily when it's available. And putting AI around it is really just important, because otherwise it just gets very difficult to optimize and use the technology. It becomes very manual. It becomes requires a lot of human intervention. So AI, like in many sectors, is going to be very important for the adoption of solar going forward.
Talk to us about what you unveiled, the brain. How does it work?
The Go Solar Brain there's many elements to it. So there's a hardware device which we unveiled, which goes in our customers' homes, and that has a lot of hardware and software in it. And then there's software that we have obviously developed and run from our offices. And what it's there to do is it gives us live communication with all the systems, and it runs a whole bunch of algorithms to ensure that, depending on weather on a certain day, depending on load shedding on a certain day, depending on consumers' habits on their houses, that we maximize the usage of solar in their homes so that they bring those costly electricity bills down.
And how does AI-driven solar technology compare to traditional systems?
Well, I think there's traditional systems, as I mentioned, there's a mismatch between when solar is available and when it gets used. And we think between 20 and 30% improvement can come just with AI and cost savings. So I think hope that answers your question.
And how is it helping close the gap in energy reliability and grid stability?
Well, on the first one, because we can control battery settings and make sure that all those factors are taken into account, so not just consumption, weather, but also load shedding. So we can also ensure, and even if it's not load shedding, sometimes there's unplanned outages. If we can make sure that the battery's at a certain level before households go into those load shedding events or unplanned outages, then we can increase their own energy reliability, and they don't have to be inconvenienced and worry about load shedding. So that's on the reliability piece. The second part of the question, just would you mind repeating?
Yes, I wanted to find out, how does it close the gap in energy grid stability?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're not there yet, but I think the brain is just the start. I think where the industry needs to go with these smart devices is the grid needs help. Eskom needs help, and municipalities need help keeping their grid stable. And things, for instance, like everyone turning their houses on at the same time at the end of load shedding is very bad for the grid. Everyone charging their geysers or running all of their appliances at the same time is very bad for the grid and can cause the grid to break down. So once we've got devices out in all these homes and the industry has adopted it, then there's an ability to control the load of the grid. So not just give consumers the benefit, but also help Eskom and help municipalities, ensuring that they can plan for the demands and supply troughs that happen.
Now, the brain was unveiled here at Africa Tech Week. What has the response been like?
I think it's been good. We launched the brain a few weeks ago, and it's rolling out to all Go Solar customers in the next year, and we've had lots of excitement about it. It's still early days, so always with new products and innovation, it takes some time, but the response has been very good today. Thank you.
We'll leave it there, Andrew. I really do appreciate you taking your time and talking to us on Channel Africa.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
That was the CEO at GoSo, Andrew Middleton, talking to us about this new AI device that's changing the game in the sector, called the Brain, which ensures that your battery is always charged to alert you to any changes that could affect you. We are live to you from Cape Town at the Africa Tech Week.
The EU-African SME Summit. Join more than 200 change makers from June 19 to June 21 at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. It's where trade meets transformation. We are building Africa's future through AFCFTA, the EU's global gateway, and the power of small businesses. It's an opportunity to spark collaboration and unlock Africa's investment. Presented by the European Entrepreneurs, the Pan-African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and Shared Value Africa. This is a summit not to be missed. Register now at euafricaSummit.eu. Africa Update on Channel Africa.
Stand by.
Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has appeared before the Tel Aviv District Court. He was indicted in 2019 on charges of bribery, fraud, and breach of trust, all of which Netanyahu denies. The trial began in 2020 and involves 3 criminal cases. He has also denied the charges and has pleaded not guilty. The 75-year-old is Israel's first sitting prime minister to be formally charged with the crime. Ditaba Tsotezi reports.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is in court at a time when his country is facing an escalating conflict in Gaza. This phase marks the beginning of the prosecution's cross-examination. Netanyahu faces questions over charges of bribery, fraud, and breach of trust charges he has consistently denied. Netanyahu is also still facing the warrant of arrest issued by the International Criminal Court over alleged atrocities committed in Gaza. UN human rights spokesperson Jeremy Lawrence.
The willful impediment of access to food and other life-sustaining relief supplies for civilians may constitute a war crime. The threat of starvation, together with 20 months of killing of civilians and destruction on a massive scale, repeated forced displacements, intolerable, dehumanizing rhetoric and threats by Israel's leadership to empty the Strip of its population also constitute elements of the most serious crimes under international law.
Spain has joined South Africa's genocide case against Israel at the International Court of Justice. Lawrence says Pretoria must be supported on this case.
In 2024, the International Court of Justice found that there was a real and imminent risk of irreparable prejudice to the rights of Palestinians in Gaza under the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide.
While Israel government says it is reviewing the incident after reports of troops firing at an aid queue in Gaza, David Mensah is a spokesperson for the Israeli government.
Allow me to address the incident that happened as crowds moved along designated routes towards a humanitarian aid distribution point in northern Gaza. Our soldiers identified several individuals who were deviating from the approved access route. Now, this occurred approximately half a kilometer from the aid distribution site. Now, our troops diligently issued warning shots, and as some of the suspects continued despite these warning shots,
ambulances have been spotted arriving at Gaza Nasser Hospital after at least 20 Palestinians were reportedly killed by Israeli.
Stand by, guys.
Israel Defense Forces said it was aware of the reports of the incident. Amdi Tabasotezi, SABC News.
That report by Ditaba Tsoteti. And to find out what's coming up next from our Joburg studios, we've got Mpumi from the Upside team in studio. Mpumi, what can we expect?
Get Channel Africa on.
Good afternoon. Well, coming up on the
Upside,
we are going to be speaking.
Yes, Mpumi, you can.
Ntanta, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear, my dear. You can
Wonderful.
just tell us what's coming up on the show.
Sure. We're going to be speaking to the Drinks Federation of South Africa, which is today unveiling their findings of the recent illicit alcohol research study, which was conducted by Euromonitor International and themselves. And it looks at a comprehensive update from what has been happening in the space from 2021 to date. So we'll really just be highlighting some of their key findings and sharing this credible data about why it is seeming that the illicit trade of alcohol is on the rise, the main structural and policy changes which have led to this type of trade. And then, Ntanta, you may be old enough to know Malik Yoba and probably would have had a crush on him like the rest of us. We're going to be speaking to the actor, Malik Yoba, and this is around his role in Kings of Joburg. Now, it's a South African production by the Fergusons, and so we're going to be catching up with him. And then, of course, we'll look at FastJet, which have launched some routes from Harare, including to South Africa, and that is in Mpumalanga in particular. And we'll also be finding out about the expansion of some of their routes, the offering on this private airline, because it is a private airline. And we'll speak to Real Madrid Foundation about the work that they are doing, having set up a camp here in South Africa. They have a Johannesburg campus. We'll find out about the various bursary types that they offer. And this Johannesburg campus was launched on the 28th of May. So we'll find out exactly what it is that young people stand to gain from this foundation and the campus that has been set up in Johannesburg. That and more coming up on the upside. Lots of music, of course, and what caught your eye by myself and Tebogo Kuleni.
Jam-packed show indeed, and of course I do know Malik Yoba, and looking forward to that particular interview and the rest of the interviews you will have on the show today. Now that wraps up Africa Update at this hour from Cape Town. If you've missed any of our interviews, you can find them on www.channelafrica.co.za. You can go on the Africa Update link and you can find whatever you've missed. Coming up next is news with Dwalane Tulo Nwebe.
Sup, guys.
Thank you.
The African Perspective.
Thank you, Ndlandla. Good day. Doctors Without Borders has called for urgent aid to support Sudanese refugees fleeing to Chad. The humanitarian situation at the border between Chad and Sudan has again reached a tipping point. An estimated 40,000 Sudanese refugees have arrived in the Chadian town of Tine since April. Chad is already hosting over 1 million refugees, including more than 8,000 Sudanese who have arrived since the conflict began 2 years ago. MSF's Pietro Maria Cutaz explains.
Majority of the people that we saw crossing, they arrived in extremely bad situation, and the situation in Chad at the moment is far from being perfect, with an hosting system that is basically unexisting. Take as a starting date the beginning of the war in Sudan 2 years ago. We're talking about 800,000 Sudanese who fled the country. If we go a bit less further in time, then we can estimate around 70,000 new refugees that reached Chad, of which around 40,000 arrived in Wadi Fira. So if we talk about the transit camp where MSF is currently operating, nowadays we have around 18,000